For global business updates, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Most things as far as Asia Pacific still mixed this morning. Basically, I'm going to give you more details of this, but Joe Biden has cut short his visit to Asia. This is because of no agreement in the debt ceiling thing, and this in the United States, and this is sort of overhanging the markets quite a lot. Some Hong Kong-based retail operations in China have pulled their apps basically there's Fulu Holdings and Up Fintech. They've actually removed their apps because they're very worried about the new regulations that the Chinese authorities may cause for online shopping. So that has been removed at the moment, and unsurprisingly, their shares have actually dropped. And this is raising very, very big concerns about whether China is more tilted towards the state sector than the private sector. And we'll get more on that in the next few days, no doubt. As far as Baidu is concerned, China's big retail search engine giant, they beat their Q1 revenue forecast. And because of that, there is a very big feeling now that never mind whether it's state or private, the actual economy of China is getting back on course again. Japan has had its highest stock market raise since the 1990s. It does look like foreigners are now buying into Japan. It's saying Japan is alive again. People are looking at opportunities in the country, and investors are actually liking what they see. So the Topics Index, the main one in Japan, are up considerably over the week. As far as the United States is concerned, Joe Biden, this is the most important thing, has cut short his Asia visit because he's wanting to engage with people and senior politicians on a daily basis about the US debt ceiling worries as well. The Home Depot sales as well came in much lower than expected, and they were always going to be a barometer of where the US consumer is right now. Their forecasts are slightly lower than expected, although it has to be said that that quite honestly, the indications for the United States are quite confusing. I would still not discount the consumer there. Elon Musk has been talking. He's been interviewed by CNBC, and he's been talking about Tesla, and he's been talking about Twitter. He's saying that Twitter was in a terrible shape when he went in there. Now it appears to be improving. The hiring of Linda Yallarino from NBC will presumably help the company attract more ads. She's got good contacts in the ad world, got good contacts in marketing as well. And Musk has been visiting northern France in particular, where he has been promising some sort of investment into France, certainly overtaking the UK efforts, but no details yet. But he's certainly been there talking to Macron after a night of clubbing over the weekend, so we're told. And he is promising a big Tesla or a big electronic vehicle factory in northern France. The UK and the EU, they have agreed to collaborate. This is a fallout from Brexit now, which is something which is actually supposed to be quite helpful. About illegal immigration across the Channel, they've said that they will combine their intelligence as far as that's concerned, and this comes at the same time as ministers have been warning the government, Suella Braverman in particular, that it's about time the industry had it easier when they want to hire legal talent to fill things in hospitality and also agriculture. Vodafone's new boss, we talked about this a little yesterday, this is Margarita Della Valle. She's going to sack 11,000 people in Vodafone over the next 3 years. It's being seen as an operation which is not really, it's lost 2% of its revenue, of its growth as well. It's not growing in Germany, Italy and Spain, where it has big markets. Lots of expected of her, and she wants to draw a line under the old Vodafone and the new bold one which she wants to envelop. The UK as well. Now, the big Labour union, Unite, has been putting pressure on Keir Starmer to nationalise the energy companies. Although it has to be said that half the railway companies in the UK are already in government hands, and the energy companies aren't. People are fed up with high prices and high profiteering as far as these companies are concerned. He's so far moved away from this, but he may well be pushed by the union Unite, which is a big supporter of the Labour Party. And in the UK as well, the cost of living means that the amount of people who cannot or decide not to or decide they can't pay their bills is up by about 40%. This is 3.1 million more than in 2022. The FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, is very, very concerned about this. What quite the government can do, not quite sure. But unemployment the rate rising to 3.9% in March. So fewer people working, and those who do shop are paying more for less. As far as oil's concerned, the global economic outlook, very, very shaky at the moment. So nobody's really sure where oil's going to go. Gold is getting a little encouragement from the ongoing debt ceiling crisis in the US. But as soon as there's a positive notice on that, then the price of gold will go down, because it is where people tend to go for a soft haven. And finally, in the UK, the cryptos, MPs are saying that crypto should attract the same kind of regulation that gambling does, which doesn't say a great deal for where one expects crypto to be actually going. The FCA, they don't want to give the idea that crypto is safe. It is a gamble, and that's what, and the risks of fraud are quite high. So that's what's happening as far as crypto is concerned and regulation in the UK. That is the global view this morning.
Michael, this job cuts here and there, job cut by telecom and tech company, is that an indication of the way the economy of the world is going? Is that something we should be scared about down the line?
I definitely think we should. I think the world is changing. We've talked, haven't we, regularly about the influence of AI, artificial intelligence, on jobs and so on. And particularly this news about Vodafone. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. 11,000 to go in 3 years. I think it probably is the way ahead. I think unemployment is going to rise. I mean, there will be other industries. Somebody has to design AI to start with. But again, AI is beginning to feed on itself, as it were. So yes, I think we should be very concerned about the rise in unemployment, certainly in tech industries as well, which, as you know, grew quite happily during the pandemic, and the expected rise after that didn't happen, and now they're having to retrench. But Vodafone, the particular example I gave you, I don't think this has anything to do so much with tech. It's to do with a company that's got too big and too slow, and it's not nimble enough, and it's not taking advantage of its markets in Germany, Italy, and Spain, which it ought to be doing. I think it's a slightly different issue.
All right, thank you, Michael. Just to look at the post-Brexit deal, especially with regards to how it affects the manufacturing industry in the UK. We had spoken about, we've looked at and examined Brexit for a while on this show, especially with you, in terms of perhaps the UK looking at some ways they could have managed this exit better. Now, one of UK's biggest car manufacturing companies, Stellantis, which produces some of UK's most loved cars like Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat, has said that they might find it difficult to continue producing cars in the UK if they don't review their policy around sourcing for parts in countries like Morocco or other parts of the world, and how that might affect their manufacturing company in the UK. I'd like you to share on that in terms of what's the trade policy, and how do you think the UK would agree to their demands to perhaps review it to allow a bit more time? They're looking at 2027 before they completely pull out of Europe's deal and Europe's policy on such. And then very quickly, Elon Musk has said that all new hires at Tesla, you had referred to him earlier, must go through him. When I saw that, I just remembered as well what we had talked about with regards to his new hire at Twitter, the CEO, and how he's a micromanager. Do you think that would raise any issues around for labor force, around the workforce in the US with this new memo that has been said to be released in his office, from his office?
I think it definitely will. I don't think that professionals particularly like working for companies which suffer from micromanagement in the way that Musk certainly does. I mean, I always take what he says with what we would say a pinch of salt, basically, because I'm not exactly sure that he knows what he means, what he's trying to do. And he said in this interview that people who work on the laptops are in la land. In other words, he's saying that people need to be back in the office. What sort of people, how he could possibly approve every single hiring of Tesla. I mean, Tesla and Twitter, that simply is not going to happen. I mean, it's too much for one man to do. He's saying in the interview how he only, has a holiday a couple of days each year. Sure, okay, fine. But physically, you cannot apply your attention to the thousands of job applications that come in. It simply isn't possible. As far as Brexit's concerned, there's no question that France is now overtaking the UK as being a place where people appear to want to invest. I say appear because Musk spent a while with Macron, the French Prime Minister, the French President rather, talking at length about how he wanted to invest in what you and I would talk about as being the Rust Belt of France, which is northern France. It may happen, it may not, but certainly he's actually saying, he's flashing an ankle, if you like, at Macron, saying, yes, I would like to invest there. I think that Brexit is something which a lot of people wanted to. We wanted to pull out of Europe because we felt that illegal immigration was not being stopped, and somehow standing up for ourselves would be slightly better. I think we are still a powerful nation. I think, though, we are still afloat and not really appreciating or getting the sort of deals that may happen after Brexit. But I think certainly the Southeast Asia deal, the TCCP, that mouthful of a deal may well bring something forward. But again, it's a very, very slow process. As far as car manufacturers are concerned, yeah, they will make these noises. But remember that it's not just simply a case of saying, OK, we're going to manufacture in Europe now, or we're going to manufacture in Asia, or we're going to manufacture in France. They've got to take the staff with them. They've got to take the tech with them. And most importantly, they've got to take their platforms with them as well, which is a difficult task. I'm not saying it won't happen. And politicians really here, both sides of the house, need to wake up to the fact that what this country most needs is an industrial policy. And it's about time we had one.
Well, two quick things, Michael. Asian countries, some of them are spending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to address the challenge of low birth rates. South Korea says in the last 16 years, they spent about $200 billion. Singapore is also spending a lot. China has joined. With this work, democratic engineering, demographic engineering, spending money to increase population growth. I would have thought that that's a very simple thing. If you want to increase population, do you need to spend billions of dollars? And secondly, I thought you were going to celebrate the call for regulation with regard to crypto by those UK MPs. Only yesterday, the European Union gave the final approval to what they call MiCA, which is a regulatory framework for crypto assets. And we're just hoping that the Americans, who are also talking about regulation, will get there. And you've always talked about, look, the need to manage the future of money much better, particularly with regard to crypto assets.
I think we do. The thing that I was mentioning to you was the fact that MPs in this country are now saying that crypto needs to be regulated in the same way the gambling industry is regulated, i.e. understand the risk. By all means do it. It's up to you. But you've got to understand that it's risky. And I think that sort of places crypto where I would kind of place it in my own mind right now. Where it goes in the future, I don't know. Is it time to regulate it? Yes, it most certainly is, because it's attracting a huge amount of interest from investors. So yes, as far as populations are concerned, the experiment in Italy, that's what I would sort of go to, is the fact that what they're doing is they're giving tax, the proposal is that they will give tax relief to larger families. Now, that is the only way that you can encourage growth in a country and encourage a workforce. But of course, that doesn't come to fruition for many, many years, does it? It's a simple matter of fact. So it's a very, very difficult thing to do, I would say.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to all our viewers. So first of all, we're going to come to the defense of our colleagues at The Guardian. We accurately said that President Buhari is exiting his office with inflation at a 17-year high. The Garba Shehu comes out saying that, COVID is the reason why we have high inflation, and he mentioned. Can you imagine? He mentions other countries saying, "Oh, it was COVID-19." Nobody, sir, please don't. What was that thing you always say? Don't pee on us and call it rain.
Pee on my back and tell me it's raining, bro.
So look, here is 2019 when inflation started accelerating. It was already high at double digits. Was the border closure, and we brought up the numbers. You can see this is 2019, year-on-year food inflation from the Bureau of Statistics. We were averaging 13%, so we're already double digits, close to 14. You can see in August, where that red part there is border closure, was 13.17. Mind you, inflation starts to decelerate during the harvest period, right, as you get towards the end of the year. You now see after they closed the borders in 2019, where the prior agricultural minister, Rufai, you quoted him multiple times, said that they will lock the key, the door, and throw in the water. You can see inflation climbing from there we've put up the chart again, from 13.17 to 13.51 to 14.09, and it had been climbing ever since. Policy decisions and their impact. There's something I think about a lot called the theoretical anatomy of a policy decision. You have a vision, you've got intentions, then you've got the reality parameters that work against your vision and your intentions, where you've got to mold that vision and intentions around it. Then importantly, your stakeholder engagement and your execution. From the border closure to fuel subsidies, to the Naira redesign, to the fiscal policy measures 2023, where they jacked up excise duties that are taking effect June 1, when businesses were planning for 2022 that would not expire until the later years. There has been a consistent, behavior where the administration doesn't seem to engage stakeholders. There's another issue on advisors. I don't know if I want to take you guys back to, as far as the importance of advisors, something I picked up. Tony Elumelu's interview, our exclusive interview with him, Bosun Amofai of Arise Exchange, yeah? He was talking about Otedola investing in Transcorp at the time, and he said that they're great friends and that the only two people he follows on Instagram are Otedola and his wife. Then Bosun, lightheartedly says, well, you should follow Arise News, right? And then he says, my team will advise. Listen to the clip.
Wife and Femi Otedola, that tells you the level. I think first, Femi Otedola is my very good friend. That's good to know. There are only two people I follow on the Instagram, my wife and Femi Otedola. That tells you the level of friendship that we have, and it's a man. You got to follow Arise. Yeah, you have to follow Arise. Okay, I will consider that. My team will advise.
Team will advise. It was instinctive, right? The fact that he's got a strategy team and the decision, even if it was in jest, right? Advisors are important in every decision that a leader makes, right? And so when you think about all the pomp and pageantry that followed President Buhari's economic advisors, where he had you're talking about Doyin Salami, you're talking about Bismarck Rewani, you're talking about some of the brightest minds in the country. They all have their views on fuel subsidies, on border closure, on all these other things. It doesn't look like he listened. And you can see that in the outcome of all these policy decisions that have impacted us. So Mr. Garba Shehu should not try and deceive anybody saying that inflation was COVID. No, it is the decision that your administration made. You said you were going to cut off smuggling in 2019. And even in his statement, he admits that Nigeria is import dependent. So you have to ask yourself, what did you do over the last 8 years to reduce? You have your sugar master plan, which you talked about, your gas master plan, all these master plans that they didn't work, they didn't materialize, and we're still import dependent, and you want to call COVID. Anyway, you guys have a big interview coming up with Mr. Ben Ayade, Cross River State professor. I'm going to jump in some economic metrics for Cross River State.
Don't do that.
Let's jump in.
God.
State revenues, IGR, 22.9 billion. FAC, revenue from FAC, 73 billion. Your IGR to FAC ratio, 23% comes from your income that you generate. This is a tourism state, by the way, supposed to be. 73% comes from there. Look at debt. Cross River is in second place there, right? Well, not in second place as far as who's the highest, but just alphabetically. 159 billion naira total debts in 2021 jumped by 23% to 197. Between 2016 and 2020, Cross River State's debts jumped by 75%. It is one of the most indebted states in the country.
Cumulatively, it's now over 110%.
Yes, it's 100, yeah, exactly. So
what did he do with the money?
We'll
ask him.
You'll ask him.
We'll ask him.
Up next, well, we got lots more. What else we got? Foreign debt. Cross River State's foreign debt jumped by about 45% in the last 4 to 5 years to $279 million. That puts the state in the snares of exchange rate volatility, because what was the exchange rate when they were taking those dollar loans, and what do they have to pay back? So that's another issue. We carry on as far as the foreign debt. What else we got? We have, so more economic metrics. GDP of 4 trillion. Capital importation, they brought in 25 billion between 2019 and 2021. Your per capita health spend is under 1,000 naira per person, 829. Per capita education, 3,359. Some more. Now, as far as the business climate, this is where things get a little ugly. Cross River fell in 2021 from 27th place as far as ease of doing business to 33rd, right? Their unemployment is one of the highest in Nigeria. They are dragging with Adamawa, I think, and Imo State. They are approximately top 3. If you add Cross River State's unemployment plus their underemployment, I mean, you're looking at north of 70-something, or over 60%. So it's really, really, and it's ease of doing business. So it's really, really tough. Then you got inflation, and this is a state where you got to ask him about that chicken factory. The chicken factory in 2021. Food inflation, 25.14%, so that's well within, right where we are nationally. Headline inflation, 21.43, and here's the thing, food inflation month on month, 4.65. The Bureau of Statistics in its latest inflation data identified Cross River State as having the highest climb in month on month. Look at that, month on month on your left, highest rise, Cross River State 4.65, Bayelsa, Ekiti, and then the slowest. Then we got some quotes from the governor. This was in 2021 when that chicken farm, frozen chicken factory was put out. He said by the close of the second quarter, that was next year, which was 2022, because he made this comment in 2021, Nigeria will be a net exporter of frozen chicken, and that is our ambition. Of course, that didn't happen because, this and that.
It's an ambition.
It's an ambition. You can be ambitious. And once we achieve that, we would have helped in strengthening the naira, and that is how we will gradually begin to stabilize this country.
That's also an ambition.
So you guys have at it. Have at it. It's going to be fun.
We'll try.
It's going to be a great discussion.
We'll try. We'll have a good time.
Yes,
with
indeed.
Our very amiable governor.
Yes, indeed.
Of Cross River State. But Rotus, there's something called the danger of a single story.
Aha.
And I know government officials, like to bring up rebuttals.
Mr. Garbashew, right?
Yeah.
And inflation, yeah.
But please, for the love of mercy, if you're going to be bringing up rebuttal, Nigerians ain't stupid. Bring out empirical,
evidence,
logical, fact-based, intelligent rebuttal.
Amen.
Give me facts.
Amen.
Let's play with facts.
Yeah.
We all know the reason for inflation was border closure. Inflation skyrocketed after the border closure.
Yeah.
The facts are there. And not Ukraine war.
Or COVID.
Because you see, it's so easy to put it, just like I think somebody also said, we've got food sustainability. And I think somebody was telling me that on a platform this morning, and I looked and I said, and you've got high
food inflation. 25.
Somebody also said, we created about 12 million jobs. I'm like, and you've got 41% unemployment projected by KPMG.
Yep.
The National Bureau of Statistics have not even released job unemployment numbers. I'm like, bring up the good arguments. And you see, there is nothing personal. I've got nothing absolutely against the Buhari administration.
It's our country. We love our country.
I'm just a patriot, and I want good arguments.
That's all.
I've got nothing personal against any governor, anybody.
That's all. That's it.
We just want a better country. And how do we do it?
Finish.
Very good arguments, intelligent conversations.
Yep.
We don't just like it when people pee on our bats and tell me it's raining.
It's rain.
Because what it feels like for me, it feels like my very dear father, Engineer Emil, saying he wasted the school fees on me. And I don't want to feel like that.
Point well made.
Well made. All right, I'll just go to, I'm very glad. Thank you so much, Rotus, for the statistics on Calabar. And it just kept getting worse. Cross River State, I keep, and just kept getting worse and worse. And then, you know, when the governor came, the governor of Cross River State was one of the most creative in terms of his budget cycle, the names of his budgets. He was very creative, and so that inspired a lot of hope. What I'd like to see are what were the impact of some of his initiatives.
Yeah, indeed.
So you talk about tourism, and a number of people had said that under his tenure, tourism seemed to have nosedived in Cross River State. What I would like to find out is Cali Air.
Right.
What
was
don't go there.
No, we have to go there.
Save it for him.
Okay, Rotus is not the best.
Save it for him.
Cali Air.
And don't say all of this. He's watching. All right. Don't say all of this now.
Let me leave
Keep
that.
quiet.
So,
Yes, Garba Shehu.
Yeah. He issued a statement saying, "Oh, don't blame Buhari for inflation. It's COVID, right?" But the more interesting part of his statement is that he was saying, "Oh, in the UK, inflation is 10.1%. In France, they have galloping inflation, that they have experienced, and so it's nothing unusual because inflation is a global trend." When I read that part of his statement, I was a bit scared. That I hope that Garuba Shehu is not suggesting, auto-suggestion that in fact inflation is not high enough in Nigeria. Because he quoted some other countries. Well, in Zimbabwe, inflation is over 75.2%.
Right.
Maybe that's where he wants us to go. In Turkey, it's also over 50%. In Sri Lanka, inflation is 80%. In Lebanon, it's 201%.
Wow.
In Venezuela, inflation is over 1,000%. So are those the kind of countries we would compare ourselves?
We reject it.
So because inflation, creates hardship.
Indeed.
As we were trying to say yesterday.
Yeah.
And the fear is that it could get worse. By the time fuel subsidy is removed, inflation is going to go up.
Right.
I think that, all of us will gain more if we focus on what do we do to address inflation. It's either the Monetary Policy Committee, when they meet, I think later this month,
Indeed.
right? When the MPC meets this month, the only option that they have been using, at least for the past few months, is to increase interest rates. But we've seen that increasing interest rates is ineffective.
That's right.
So what are those things that we need to worry about? That would be a more fruitful conversation by looking at the root causes
Indeed.
of high inflation. That's more constructive. For example, food inflation is the major driver of inflation in Nigeria.
That is correct.
Over 24.6%,
Yep.
close to 25%. Why do we have food inflation? Insecurity, climate change issues, flooding that we can't even address, insecurity. Many farmers in the food basket areas cannot go to the farms.
Indeed.
Can somebody please address that?
Yeah.
And if you look at all those things, these are part of responsibilities of leadership. Flooding, for example, insecurity, for example, transportation from farm to table, network. And then, of course, monetary policy. The central bank still has a lot more to do.
Indeed.
Particularly about money supply, particularly about the responsibility of the bank. So these are some of the issues. Instead of quoting percentages, that could get worse,
right.
Or praying that maybe Nigeria will be like Venezuela one day,
right.
Or even in Afghanistan, inflation is not up to 4%.
Right.
Anyway, thank you, Roger.
Thank you so much.